The morning light filtered weakly through the kitchen curtains as I sat at the table, staring at the worn leather journal in my hands. It was 2 months after Margaret passed, and the house in suburban Denver still echoed with her absence. At 74, I had thought my life was over the day she slipped away after 48 years together. We had built everything side by side, the quiet mornings with coffee, the backyard garden she tended so lovingly, the evenings spent reading aloud to each other. Now, every corner reminded me of what was gone. I had avoided her things for weeks, but that morning something compelled me to open her journal. She had written in it during those final agonizing months as cancer ravaged her body. I expected pages filled with her fears, her goodbyes, perhaps regrets about the trips we never took. Instead, on the very last page, dated just 10 days before she left us, there was a list. 7 names, 7 addresses and phone numbers scribbled in her neat, careful handwriting. At the top, Robert. These are the ones who know the silence. They're waiting for you, even if they don't realize it. Find them. I love you forever. Maggie. My hands trembled. Who were these people? None of the names rang a bell. Eleanor Grant, 70. Husband passed 7 months prior. Marcus Riley, 72. Wife lost to Alzheimer's after years of decline, and 5 more. I flipped backward through the journal and discovered her secret. While I had been consumed with caregiving, administering medications, holding her through the nights of pain, driving her to endless appointments, Margaret had been quietly scanning local obituaries in the newspaper. She sought out recent widows and widowers, those whose notices hinted at profound isolation. No surviving children mentioned. Private services requested. Donations preferred over flowers. She noted details like caregiving roles, long illnesses, sudden losses. In the margins, her thoughts. Eleanor was primary caregiver for 8 years after his stroke. She'll understand the exhaustion you hide. Or for Marcus. He watched his wife fade away piece by piece. Just like you watched me. He needs someone who gets the long goodbye. The note at the bottom hit hardest. You've always carried everything alone. Robert. This grief will consume you if you face it solo. These people understand the weight. Help each other, for me. Please try. I sat there for what felt like hours. The journal open. Coffee growing cold. Calling strangers about my dead wife felt absurd. Almost invasive. How do you explain that your dying spouse compiled a list of grieving strangers for you to befriend? But Maggie had asked, and refusing her final wish was impossible. 3 days later, heart pounding, I dialed the first number. Eleanor Grant answered on the 4th ring, her voice cautious. Hello. I stumbled through the explanation. My name, my wife's recent passing, the journal. The list. Silence stretched. Then, softly, your wife found me in the obituary section? She paused. Henry died 7 months ago. Stroke while we were eating dinner. I still set his plate out sometimes. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near Washington Park the following Saturday at 10. When I hung up, my chest felt lighter by a fraction, not hope exactly, but something other than the constant ache. The next calls followed a similar pattern. Marcus Riley was gruff at first, suspicious, but softened when I mentioned the shared caregiving burden. She forgot my name years before the end, he said quietly. I became a stranger in my own home. Sophia Lang, 68, lost her husband in a sudden heart attack during a hike they loved. She carried guilt for not noticing warning signs. Victor Patel, 71, widowed after 43 years, mentioned in his wife's obituary as preferring privacy. Each conversation left me drained yet strangely connected. By the end of 2 weeks, all 7 had tentatively agreed to meet. That first gathering happened in my living room on a crisp September afternoon. I had set out coffee, store-bought cookies, feeling foolish hosting what amounted to a grief assembly. 8 people over 65, strangers bound only by loss, sat awkwardly on sofas and chairs. Eleanor arrived first, elegant in a simple cardigan, eyes scanning the room warily. Marcus came next, carrying a small potted plant as a gesture. Sophia fidgeted with her hands. The silence was thick until Eleanor spoke. "So, why are we here exactly?" Her question broke the dam. We began sharing. Haltingly, at first. I told them about Margaret's final months. How caregiving had given my days purpose until suddenly there was none. Marcus described watching his wife disappear into Alzheimer's. The agony of being forgotten by the person who knew him best. Sophia recounted the hiking trail moment her husband collapsed. How she performed CPR knowing it was too late. Victor spoke of the emptiness after 43 years of shared routines. Laughter emerged unexpectedly when Eleanor admitted still arguing aloud with her late husband about household chores. "I caught myself yelling at the empty chair last week," she said with a wry smile. Heads nodded around the room. For the first time since the funeral, I felt seen, not pitted, but understood. That afternoon stretched into 3 hours of raw conversation about the physical weight of loneliness, the mornings waking and forgetting for a split second, the exhaustion of pretending to be fine for family and acquaintances. We weren't fixing each other, we were simply surviving together. As people left, Marcus paused at the door. "Next Saturday? Same time?" The group exchanged glances. Small nods of agreement rippling through. Something fragile had begun. Weeks turned into a rhythm. We met every Saturday, rotating houses when someone's space felt too heavy. No formal agenda. No professional facilitator, just 8 people navigating the minefield of late-life widowhood together. The awkwardness of those early meetings melted as trust built. Eleanor taught us her late husband's recipe for chicken pot pie one afternoon in her cozy kitchen. We chopped vegetables side by side, debating spice levels, laughing when Victor burned the onions. For those hours, we weren't defined solely by loss. We were simply cooking, sharing stories of better days. Marcus brought his old acoustic guitar to one gathering. He hadn't touched it since his wife died. But that day he strummed familiar folk tunes, Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash classics. Our voices joined in, off-key and unpolished, filling the room with imperfect harmony that somehow healed pieces of us. Sophia organized a visit to the Denver Art Museum, explaining her husband had adored modern art but she had always preferred staying home. 6 of us wandered galleries, debating abstract paintings with playful arguments, stopping for coffee afterward to debrief. Victor hosted a low-stakes poker night at his place. "My wife hated gambling," he joked, though his eyes betrayed deeper pain. "Now she's not here to stop me." We played with pennies, inventing silly house rules, teasing each other mercilessly. Laughter echoed late into the night, a sound I hadn't heard in my home for months. These activities weren't distractions, they were lifelines, proving life could still hold moments of joy even as grief lingered. Conflicts arose naturally, as they do in any group. One Saturday, Sophia broke down recounting survivors' guilt over her husband's death. "I should have insisted on that doctor's visit," she sobbed. Marcus snapped unexpectedly. "You think you're the only one with regrets?" I argued with her the morning she forgot who I was. The room tensed until Eleanor gently intervened, reminding us we weren't competing in pain. "We're here because none of us can carry it alone." Apologies followed, hugs exchanged. These small frictions strengthened bonds rather than breaking them. I began noticing subtle changes in myself. Tasks that once felt monumental, like grocery shopping alone, became bearable when Eleanor texted reminders or Victor offered to tag along. We exchanged numbers, started casual weekday calls checking in. When Marcus caught a bad cold, Sophia dropped off soup. Victor drove him to the pharmacy. The group evolved beyond meetings into a quiet support network mirroring family obligations, but chosen freely. My adult children, Ethan from Chicago and Claire from Portland, called weekly, concerned but distant. I assured them I was managing, never mentioning the group. They had their careers, spouses, young kids, burdens I refused to add. Yet inside, the isolation had been crushing. Now, with these 7, I felt anchored. 6 months in, preparing for our usual Saturday, I realized an entire week had passed without the crushing morning tears. Grief hadn't vanished. Margaret's absence still ached sharply. But the constant drowning sensation eased because I had purpose again, helping fix Eleanor's leaky faucet on Tuesday, sharing lunch with Marcus Wednesday, attending Sophia's grandson's school play Thursday because she dreaded going solo. The realization hit hard. Maggie had foreseen my withdrawal into solitude. She had handpicked these people who would allow my sadness without abandoning me to it. That afternoon, as the group settled in with coffee, I shared it aloud. Maggie knew I'd vanish into this house if left alone. She searched obituaries during her final weeks, compiling your names because she understood I'd never ask for help. You saved me. Eyes misted. Eleanor whispered. She saved us too. Marcus raised his mug. To Maggie, who knew shared grief could become shared life. We echoed her name softly, the room thick with gratitude. The year progressed with deeper integration. Holidays arrived like minefields, but we faced them together. Thanksgiving became a potluck at my house. Eleanor's famous stuffing, Marcus's cranberry sauce with a twist, Sophia's pies. We toasted absent spouses, shared memories both joyful and painful, cried together, then laughed at old photos passed around phones. Christmas followed with a modest tree-trimming evening, exchanging small handmade gifts symbolizing survival, a framed quote about resilience, a potted plant for new growth. Birthdays gained new significance. My 75th fell on a Thursday in early spring, 11 months after Maggie. I had planned a quiet day, avoiding celebration without her. But Wednesday evening, Eleanor called firmly. We're coming over tomorrow at 6. No arguments. I protested weakly, but she hung up laughing. Thursday evening, the doorbell rang. All 7 stood on the porch, Eleanor with a casserole, Marcus holding a bakery cake, others bearing dishes and wine bottles. Surprise. Sophia grinned. We're taking over. They filed in, transforming my kitchen into organized chaos. The dining table overflowed. Victor's spring rolls, Marcus's enchilada variation learned post-loss, Sophia's potato salad. Laughter filled spaces long silent. As we sat to eat, the doorbell rang again. Ethan and Claire appeared unexpectedly, suitcases in hand. Surprise. Dad. Claire hugged me tightly. Ethan scanned the unfamiliar faces curiously. Dad. You didn't mention new friends. Introductions followed. Tension simmered initially as my kids processed the scene, polite but questioning why I had never spoken of this group. Marcus broke the ice. Your dad's private. Like most of us. We've been widows and widowers meeting weekly, helping through the rough patches. Claire's eyes widened. We call every week. But you said you were fine. Sophia smiled gently. Most of us hid the worst from our kids too. Didn't want to worry you. Ethan turned to me. Dad, you weren't burdening us. We wanted to help. I admitted the truth. Your mom knew I'd struggle alone. She left that list. Spent her last months ensuring I wouldn't be. Tears flowed as I recounted the journal discovery, her obituary searches, the notes tailored to each person's loss. Claire whispered, That's so, Mom, even dying. Caring for everyone. The evening lightened. Poker stories emerged. Museum adventures retold. Recipes praised. My kids relaxed, joining conversations. Later, Ethan pulled me aside in the kitchen. I'm sorry we didn't see how alone you were. You always sounded okay on calls. I reassured him. I was good at pretending. These friends saw through it. He hugged me hard. Happy birthday,
Dad.
Mom would be proud of this, of you rebuilding. Claire later added during cleanup. Thank you for letting us meet them. You're not just surviving.
Dad.
You're living. That night, after they left and the house quieted, I sat reflecting. The group had become family not by blood, but by chosen resilience. Laughter from the dining room still echoed in memory. A sound of survival. A year after Maggie's passing, we visited her grave together, not because I asked, but because they sensed I needed support. Standing before the headstone, I spoke aloud. I found them.
Maggie.
You were right. Eleanor stood beside me. We'll keep meeting. Every Saturday. As long as needed, Marcus added wryly. Probably forever, you're all stuck with me. The group chuckled softly. 8 people who began as strangers now stood as family, transformed by shared pain into shared purpose. 2 years later, the circle had grown. 3 new members joined through referrals, friends of friends facing fresh widowhood. Meetings expanded beyond Saturdays to texts, errands, holiday celebrations. We became emergency contacts, hospital visitors, grocery helpers. When Marcus faced pneumonia hospitalization, shifts rotated seamlessly. Eleanor sat mornings, Sophia afternoons, Victor evenings. We brought homemade meals despite complaints about hospital food, shared jokes to lift spirits. Upon discharge, Eleanor coordinated daily check-ins. This is what family does, she declared when he protested the attention. I still miss Maggie daily, the impulse to share a funny story only to remember her absence. Mornings reaching for her side of the bed. Grief persists as an unfillable space after nearly 5 decades together. Yet I no longer drown. The group allows sadness on hard days while insisting on forward movement, proving grief and laughter coexist. When newcomers arrive lost in fresh pain, I share Eleanor's early words. It never stops hurting completely, but it stops hurting alone. That changes everything. Maggie's final act, scanning obituaries, compiling that list despite her suffering, embodied profound love, preparing me not just to die with her, but to live without her. She gave me 7 strangers who became lifelines, then family. The house no longer feels overwhelmingly silent. Routines rebuilt with others in mind. Garden tended collectively. Meals shared. Purpose rediscovered in mutual care. Legal realities grounded us. No dramatic disputes. Just practical support like helping with paperwork, accompanying doctor visits, ensuring medications taken. Psychologically, validation from peers who get it eased isolation more than any solo therapy could. My children visit more frequently now, monthly trips, grandkids in tow. They see the group not as replacement but complement, appreciating the chosen family that supplements blood ties. Ethan once said, Mom built this for you, but you showed up every day. That's strength. Reflecting now, years later, the central truth endures. Profound loss isolates unless met with understanding hearts. Maggie's insight, that I would never ask for help, drove her quiet research. Her meticulous notes capturing nuances of each person's grief journey. She understood long-term caregiving's toll. Sudden versus prolonged losses, guilt's grip, the social withdrawal that follows. Her list wasn't random. It was tailored compassion. Our group navigated societal realities realistically. In America, Elderly widows and widowers often face financial strains. Healthcare navigation alone. Diminish social circles as peers pass or distance themselves. We pooled knowledge, sharing Medicare tips, recommending reliable contractors, accompanying each other to appointments. Humor lightened bureaucratic frustrations. Victor's dry wit about insurance denials became legendary. Moral questions linger. How do we honor the dead while embracing life? Is chosen family as valid as blood? Can grief transform into strength without erasing love? Our story suggests yes through vulnerability, persistence, small acts compounding into profound support. We don't move on but move with the loss, integrating it. One recent Saturday, as rain pattered against windows during our gathering, a new member shared her story tearfully. We listened without rushing fixes, offering presence. Later, Marcus strummed guitar softly. Voices joined again. In that circle, the bung-no of emotion, slow build of tension releasing into connection, felt like whispering reassurance. You're not alone. Maggie's final gift echoes. Love endures by ensuring the beloved isn't abandoned to silence. She saved me by giving me them. And in helping each other, we honor her wisdom daily. The question remains for all facing such loss. Will we seek or accept the hands reaching through darkness? In sharing pain, we discover we are never truly alone.